The Krathak's Grand Armada gathered at the border of their empire like a storm made of steel and fire. 3,000 warships pulled from every military installation across hundreds of worlds. Emperor Vexnar commanded from his personal dreadnought, a vessel so large it had its own gravity generators. He watched the fleet assemble with satisfaction. This would be the largest military operation in Krathak's history. His intelligence officers had tracked human fleet movements. They detected only 400 ships moving to intercept. 400 against 3,000. The odds were overwhelming. The humans would be crushed, and the galaxy would remember that the Krathak's empire was not to be challenged. What the Krathaks didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for exactly this scenario since the first encounter with hostile aliens. The human defense doctrine wasn't built on fair fights or proportional responses. It was built on winning no matter the cost. Admiral Gunwu stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical displays update in real time. The Krathak's armada was moving through the Helix Nebula, a region of space filled with gas clouds and radiation fields. It was dangerous territory, but the Krathaks had superior numbers. They thought they could punch through any resistance. They were wrong. All ships assume defensive positions, Gunwu ordered. Let them come to us. The nebula is our advantage, not theirs. Captain Yuna watched the battle unfold from a safe distance. She had converted her freighter into a mobile medical station, ready to receive wounded from both sides. Her crew worked to prepare emergency surgical bays. They knew this battle would produce casualties on a scale the galaxy hadn't seen in generations. The Krathak's armada entered the nebula in a massive formation, 3,000 ships moving in coordinated waves. It was an impressive display of military might. Emperor Vexnar felt confident. Nothing could stand against such a force. Then the humans revealed their true strategy. The 400 human ships weren't positioned for a traditional battle. They were scattered throughout the nebula in small groups, using the gas clouds for cover. When the Krathak's fleet entered their kill zones, the humans struck from every direction at once. But they didn't just use their ships. They used everything. Commander Jiho's intelligence division had spent weeks seeding the nebula with autonomous weapons. Thousands of kinetic mines drifted like debris, waiting for proximity triggers. When Krathak's ships passed by, the mines activated, slamming into hulls with devastating force. The Krathak's point defense systems couldn't track them all. They were designed to stop missiles and energy weapons, not small, fast-moving objects that looked like space junk. Drone swarms launched from human carriers. Tens of thousands of small expendable drones overwhelmed Krathak's targeting systems. The drones weren't heavily armed, but they didn't need to be. They jammed sensors, blocked communications, and generally created chaos. While Krathak's crews struggled to deal with the drone clouds, human warships emerged from the gas clouds and struck with precision. Captain Doyen commanded a squadron of fast attack ships. They used the nebula's radiation fields to mask their approach, then burst out at close range where Krathak's weapons couldn't effectively track them. His ships fired their railguns and immediately dove back into cover before the enemy could respond. Hit and run, Doyen ordered his squadron. Don't give them time to lock on. Keep moving. Use the environment. It was warfare adapted from Earth's most dangerous regions. Like predators hunting in dense jungle, like fighters using urban terrain for cover. Humans had learned these tactics over thousands of years of conflict on their death world. Now they applied them on a cosmic scale. General Nari's boarding teams took a different approach. They didn't wait for ships to be disabled. They launched assault pods at full-speed vessels, using shaped charges to breach hulls while ships were still operational. Inside, her Terra Marines moved through corridors in powered armor, clearing deck by deck. The Krathak's Marines fought bravely, but they were fighting in environments designed for their species. Lighter gravity, thinner atmosphere. When human Marines arrived, adapted to Earth's crushing pull, the physical disparity was obvious. A Krathak soldier might train for years to master combat. A human Marine just had to punch with the strength their homeworld had given them. But humanity didn't just use violence. Dr. Hana's psychological operations team broadcast continuously on Krathak's frequencies. Surrender and live. We don't want to exterminate you. We want to stop you. Lay down your weapons and receive medical treatment. Continue fighting and die for an emperor who doesn't care about you. Some Krathak's crews listened. Not many at first, but enough. When those crews surrendered, human ships immediately ceased fire. Medical teams came aboard. Wounded Krathax received the same treatment as wounded humans. Food and water were provided. Prisoners were treated with respect. This confused the Krathax more than the violence did. Their empire was built on domination. Surrender meant death or slavery. But humans offered a third option, mercy. It was so alien to Krathax thinking that many soldiers didn't know how to process it. Emperor Vexnar watched his tactical displays with growing horror. His fleet was being torn apart, not through superior firepower but through superior tactics. The humans were using the nebula like a weapon. They were using drones and mines and cyber warfare. They were boarding ships and turning them against the fleet. And worst of all, they were offering mercy. Some of his crews were actually surrendering. It was unthinkable. It was disgraceful. It was, smart. All ships, withdraw to defensive formation Delta, Vexnar ordered. We'll consolidate and push through with concentrated force. But Commander Jiho's hackers were inside the Krathax communication network. They altered orders, changed formation patterns, sent false reports. Half the fleet turned left when they should have turned right. Ships collided with each other trying to form up. The magnificent Grand Armada descended into chaos. The battle raged for 6 days. The Krathax kept fighting because their culture demanded it. Death before dishonor. Victory or nothing. But slowly, inevitably, their numbers dwindled. Human ships took casualties too. The Krathax weren't cowards and they had powerful weapons. 26 human vessels were destroyed. 3,000 personnel killed. Every death was recorded. Every name was remembered. Because humans understood that war had costs and those costs mattered. On the 6th day, Emperor Vexnar's dreadnought took critical damage. Multiple railgun hits breached the reactor shielding. The ship was dying and he knew it. His advisors urged him to evacuate, but he refused. He was the Emperor. He would die with his flagship. Admiral Gunwu had other plans. He ordered a precision strike on the dreadnought's command section, disabling it without destroying it. Then General Nari's best boarding team went in. They fought through the Imperial Guard and captured Vexnar alive. The Emperor was brought before Gunwu on the Indomitable. He expected execution. Instead, he was offered medical treatment and a chair. Your fleet is broken, Gunwu said quietly. 2,000 ships destroyed or captured. The survivors are fleeing back to Krathax space. Your empire is defenseless. I could order my ships to glass every Krathax world. Kill every citizen. Wipe your species from existence. Vexnar waited for death, his pride shattered but his posture still defiant. But we won't, Gunwu continued, because unlike you, we understand the difference between justice and revenge. We didn't come here to commit genocide. We came to stop one. He pulled up holographic displays showing the aftermath of the battle. Krathax prisoners being treated in medical bays, captured ships being salvaged, wounded from both sides receiving care. We're going to let you live, Emperor. You're going to stand trial for war crimes. Your empire will be reformed. The slaves will be freed. And maybe, just maybe, your people will learn that strength doesn't mean domination. Vexnar stared at the displays, understanding finally dawning. These humans weren't conquerors. They were something far more dangerous. They were idealists with the power to enforce their ideals. Captain Yuna's medical freighter worked around the clock. Her crew treated over 8,000 wounded in those 6 days, human and Krathax alike. Taiyang, the engineer who once said they should avoid this fight, now worked alongside Dr. Hana's medical teams, learning emergency surgery techniques. I was wrong, Taiyang told Yuna during a brief rest period. We should have gotten involved. This was worth it. Yuna thought about her grandfather again, about all his stories of old Earth, about how humanity learned to survive by working together, by protecting the weak, by refusing to let predators go unchallenged. He would have been proud of all of us, Yuna said softly. The Battle of Helix Nebula ended not with Krathax surrender, but with Krathax understanding. They had challenged Deathworlders and learned a hard lesson. Humans weren't dangerous because they were violent. They were dangerous because they had spent millions of years learning how to survive impossible odds. And when Deathworlders decided to protect instead of prey, the predators of the universe learned something terrifying. There was something worse than humans who wanted to hurt you, humans who wanted to save you, and they would go through anyone who stood in their way. Admiral Gunwu arrived at Lumina 7 3 days after the battle. His command carrier, the Indomitable, settled into high orbit alongside medical ships, supply transports, and the remaining combat vessels. The debris field from the battle spread across space like a graveyard. 60 Krathax warships reduced to scrap metal and frozen corpses. He brought diplomatic envoy Sumi and Xeno-relations specialist Ariam with him to the surface. The Villani needed to understand what had happened and what came next. This wasn't just about saving one world. This was about changing the rules of the galaxy. The Krathax survivors, only 1,200 out of an original force of 30,000, were held in containment fields near the planet's equator. Human Marines stood guard, their armor still scorched from boarding operations. The prisoners were given food, water, and medical treatment. Many looked confused by this. The Krathax didn't treat prisoners well. They expected humans to do the same. The Villani matriarch, Crystal Singer of Dawn, met the human delegation in what remained of her government hall. Half the building was destroyed by Krathax bombardment. The walls that still stood were covered in burn marks and impact craters. She was an old Villani, her crystalline body showing cracks and wear from age, but her eyes were sharp and intelligent. "You saved us," she said in Galactic Common. Her voice resonated like wind chimes. "We are grateful beyond words, but we are also afraid. The violence you brought, it was necessary, but it was terrible to witness." Envoy Sumi stepped forward. She was chosen for this role because she understood alien psychology and could speak hard truths with kindness. "Matriarch, we didn't come here to be your friends. We came because what the Krathax did was wrong, and no one else would act. Now we need to make sure it never happens again." Crystal Singer of Dawn gestured to what remained of her council. 6 other Villani stood nearby, their crystalline forms dimmed with exhaustion and grief. "What do you mean?" "The Krathax fleet is destroyed. We are safe now, aren't we?" Dr. Hana stepped forward carrying her data pad. "No, Matriarch. You're not safe. The Krathax Empire has 12 core worlds and hundreds of conquered territories. The fleet we destroyed was just one occupation force. If we leave now, they'll send another fleet, and another, until either you're enslaved or dead." She projected holographic images into the air, maps of the Krathax Empire, supply lines, military installations, slave camps filled with captured populations from a dozen species. "We've been tracking the Krathax for years. They've been committing atrocities across 3 sectors. The Galactic Coalition knew about it. They did nothing because it wasn't strategically important to them." Ariam, the Xeno-relations specialist, added more information. "The Coalition operates on treaty law. If you're not a member and haven't signed their military agreements, they won't defend you. It's not personal. It's just politics. They can't justify military action to protect non-members." Crystal Singer of Dawn's crystalline form seemed to dim further. "We refused to join their military treaties because we believed in peace. We thought our scholarship and art would protect us. We thought no one would harm a people dedicated to knowledge and beauty." "You were wrong," General Nari said bluntly. She had come down to the surface with Admiral Gunwu, still wearing her combat uniform. "The galaxy doesn't work that way. The strong prey on the weak. The only thing that stops them is someone stronger standing up and saying no." Admiral Gunwu raised his hand, gesturing for General Nari to soften her approach. "What General Nari means is that peace requires guardians. Your people can dedicate themselves to scholarship and art. That's beautiful and important, but someone needs to stand between you and those who would destroy that beauty. We're offering to be those guardians." He turned to face War Master Thulvar, who had been brought to the meeting under heavy guard. The Krathax commander stood in shackles, his pride broken but his posture still defiant. "War Master," Gunwu said calmly, "you're going to deliver a message to your emperor. Humanity is declaring war on the Krathax Empire, not for territory, not for resources, but because you've shown us what you are, and we won't tolerate it anymore." Thulvar's eyes widened. "You're declaring war? You're 6 fleets against an empire with thousands of ships. You'll be crushed." Captain Doyen, standing nearby with his command staff, laughed quietly. "We're not 6 fleets. We're the warning shot. The Krathax Empire has 72 hours to respond to our demands. Release all slaves. Surrender war criminals for trial. Begin reparations to the species you've harmed. Refuse and you'll meet the rest of humanity." Commander Jiho stepped forward with a data chip. "This contains evidence of every war crime the Krathax Empire has committed in the past decade. Civilian massacres, slave trading, ecological destruction, torture of prisoners. It's all documented. We're broadcasting it to every civilized world in the galaxy. The Coalition can ignore it if they want, but everyone else will see what you've done." Dr. Hana added the final piece. "We're also offering an alternative. Any Krathax world that renounces the Empire and agrees to democratic reforms will receive protection and aid. Any Krathax soldier who deserts will be granted asylum. Any Krathax civilian who wants out will get safe passage. This isn't about destroying your species. It's about ending your empire. Thulvar stared at them in disbelief. Humans were offering mercy to an enemy that showed them none. It made no sense according to Krathax military doctrine. The strong dominated. The weak submitted. There was no third option. Your emperor has 3 days to decide, Admiral Gunwu said. After that, we're coming for every military installation, every war fleet, and every slave camp in Krathax space. Tell him that Deathworlders don't bluff. The message was transmitted on all Krathax frequencies, military channels, civilian broadcasts. Even the secret communication lines Commander Jiho's intelligence division had hacked. Every Krathax in the Empire heard the ultimatum. On the throne world of Krathax Prime, Emperor Vexnar watched the transmission in his grand palace. He was old, even by Krathax standards, having ruled for 50 years through cunning and ruthlessness. He had built the Empire from a dozen worlds to hundreds. He had crushed every enemy who opposed him. His military advisors surrounded him, all urging different responses. Some wanted immediate surrender, others wanted total war. A few suggested assassination attempts on human leadership. Vexnar dismissed them all. He had not built an empire by being a fool, but he also had not built it by showing weakness. He studied the battle reports from Lumina 7, 6 human ships destroying 60 Krathax vessels. It seemed impossible, but the evidence was clear. Still, 6 ships was not thousands. The humans were bluffing. They had to be. No species would commit to total war over aliens they didn't even have treaties with. He made his decision. Mobilize the Grand Armada, 3,000 warships, everything we have. We're going to crush these Deathworlders and remind the galaxy why the Krathax Empire is feared. His advisors scrambled to obey. Orders went out across the Empire. Every available ship, every trained crew, the largest military force the Krathax had ever assembled. It would take time to gather them all, but when they moved, it would be an unstoppable tide. Back on Lumina 7, Crystal Singer of Dawn asked the question that troubled her most. What will you do if they refuse? Will you really go to war with an entire empire? Admiral Gunwu looked at the Villani matriarch with eyes that had seen too much death. Matriarch, my species evolved on a planet that spent 4 billion years trying to kill us. We survived ice ages, supervolcanoes, asteroid impacts, and 1,000 other extinction events. We learned to thrive in environments that would kill most galactic species in minutes. We didn't become strong because we wanted to. We became strong because we had to. He turned to look at the stars through the broken roof of the hall. The Krathax think strength means dominating others. They're wrong. Real strength is protecting those who can't protect themselves. That's what Earth taught us. That's what makes us dangerous. Not our weapons or our ships, but our unwillingness to stand by while innocent people suffer. Envoy Sumi placed a gentle hand on the matriarch's crystalline shoulder. We're offering you something the galaxy has forgotten. Justice. Not politics or strategy or treaties. Just simple justice. The strong defending the weak because it's right. Crystal Singer of Dawn was silent for a long time. Then she spoke softly. And if the Krathax Empire accepts your ultimatum? What then? Then we help them become better, Dr. Hana said. We don't want to destroy them. We want to reform them, show them there's another way to exist in the galaxy. And if they refuse? General Nari's smile was cold as space. Then they'll learn why you don't challenge Deathworlders. The hard way. War Master Thulvar stood on the bridge of his command dreadnought, watching Lumina 7 burn. The planet's crystalline cities, once beautiful monuments to art and learning, were now columns of smoke and fire. His fleet of 60 warships surrounded the world like vultures around dying prey. The Villani had surrendered within hours. They had no weapons, no military training, no way to resist. Now his ground troops were sorting the population. The strong would go to labor camps. The skilled would serve the Empire as craftsmen and technicians. The rest would be sold to the highest bidder in the slave markets. It was a routine operation. Thulvar had done this 17 times before. The pattern never changed. Peaceful species always surrendered quickly. They always believed diplomacy would save them. They were always wrong. His censor officer interrupted his thoughts. War Master, we're detecting ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. 6 vessels, human design, Thulvar looked at his tactical display. 6 ships? The humans had sent only 6 ships against his fleet of 60? He felt insult mixed with amusement. Perhaps the Deathworlders were as stupid as they were ugly. Their thick bones and dense muscles made them look like brutes compared to the elegant Krathax. Open a communication channel, Thulvar ordered. I want to hear them beg for mercy before we destroy them. But the humans didn't hail. They didn't request negotiation. They didn't even slow down. The lead ship, broadcasting its identification as the Righteous Fury, accelerated directly toward the Krathax formation. The other 5 ships spread out in a pattern that made no tactical sense to Thulvar's experienced eye. Then the humans opened fire. The weapons were primitive kinetic systems, railguns and missile launchers, the kind of outdated technology most advanced species had abandoned centuries ago in favor of energy weapons. Thulvar's shields were designed to deflect laser beams and plasma bolts. Kinetic weapons should have been useless. The first railgun slug hit a Krathax destroyer at 40% of light speed. The tungsten uranium penetrator punched through the shields like they weren't there, through the armor plating, through 3 decks of interior structure, and out the other side. The destroyer's reactor containment failed. The ship exploded in a ball of superheated plasma. Thulvar's amusement died instantly. All ships return fire. Destroy those vessels. But the human ships were already moving. They didn't fly like normal spacecraft. They used gravity wells and planetary magnetic fields for momentum. They dove into the upper atmosphere and used air resistance to make impossibly tight turns. They moved like fighters, not capital ships, exploiting every advantage of physics that Thulvar's heavier vessels couldn't match. The missiles arrived next. They weren't carrying explosive warheads. The first wave was electromagnetic pulse weapons that fried ship systems, leaving Krathax vessels blind and helpless. The second wave was thermobaric bombs that created fireballs of superheated gas, cooking crews alive inside their armor. 3 more destroyers exploded in the first minute. Thulvar screamed orders to his fleet. Target those ships. Concentrate fire. Use superior numbers to overwhelm them. On the bridge of the Righteous Fury, Captain Doyen watched his tactical display with cold focus. His crew worked in perfect coordination. Weapons Officer Bora called out targets. Pilot June executed maneuvers that would have killed crews from lighter gravity worlds. Tactical Analyst Minho tracked enemy movements and predicted firing solutions. They had trained for this their entire careers. Every simulation, every war game, every practice drill had been preparation for combat against numerically superior forces. Because humans understood something most species didn't. War wasn't about fair fights. It was about survival. And on Earth, nothing survived by fighting fair. Railgun batteries 4 through 7 target the Dreadnought's sensor arrays, Doyen ordered. I want them blind. The Righteous Fury rolled, presenting its dorsal weapons to the enemy flagship. Railgun slugs tore through space at relativistic speeds. Each impact released energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. The Krathax Dreadnought's shields flared and failed. Its sensor arrays shattered. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull. Thulvar stumbled as his ship shook. Emergency lights flickered. Damage reports flooded in from every section. How was this possible? These were just 6 ships against his entire fleet. War Master, we're being hacked! His communications officer shouted. The humans are inside our network. They're broadcasting false orders. Our ships don't know which commands are real. Commander Jiho's stealth division had done their job perfectly. They had infiltrated the Krathax command network before the battle even started. Now they sowed confusion and chaos. Ships received orders to fire on their own allies. Navigation systems displayed false positions. Life support systems shut down randomly. The Krathax fleet, built on rigid military discipline, began to fall apart. Captains couldn't trust their sensors or their orders. They started acting independently, breaking formation, making themselves even easier targets for the human ships. General Nari watched from her transport vessel as the main battle unfolded. Her Terra Marines waited in their powered armor, ready for boarding operations. Each suit of armor was a marvel of Deathworld engineering. It could operate in vacuum, underwater, or in toxic atmospheres. It augmented the already impressive strength of humans adapted to heavy gravity, and it made each Marine into a walking weapons platform. A Krathax cruiser took critical damage and went into emergency shutdown. Its crew began broadcasting surrender signals. General Nari smiled. First platoon, you're up. Remember, if they surrender, we take prisoners. If they resist, you know what to do. The Marines launched in armored drop pods. They didn't aim for the docking bays. They trajectory straight into the hull, using shaped charges to breach through the armor. Inside, they found Krathax Marines waiting to repel boarders. The fight was brief and brutal. Krathax soldiers were skilled and brave, but they fought on ships designed for their lighter gravity. Human Marines born under Earth's crushing pull moved faster and hit harder. Their weapons fired projectiles instead of energy beams, punching through cover and armor alike. Within 10 minutes, the cruiser was secured. Thulvar watched his fleet die ship by ship. 20 vessels destroyed in the first hour, 30 in the second. His warriors fought bravely, but bravery meant nothing against enemies who fought with such terrifying efficiency. He opened a channel to all remaining ships. "Ramming speed! If we cannot win, we'll take them with us." It was the Krathax way. Die with honor. Never surrender. Never show weakness. But humans had learned to counter even suicide tactics. As Krathax ships accelerated toward kamikaze runs, the human vessels deployed drone screens. Thousands of small expendable drones swarmed the enemy ships, detonating on their hulls and breaking up their formations. Those that got through found human ships suddenly weren't where they expected. Precision timing and superior sensors allowed the humans to dodge at the last possible moment. One human ship, the Defiant, took critical damage from a kamikaze run. Its crew had seconds to evacuate, but they didn't flee to safety. Their escape pods didn't head away from the battle. They aimed straight at Krathax vessels, using their pods as boarding craft. The Krathax Marines who met them were shocked to see humans emerge from pods, still wearing combat armor, still armed and ready to fight. They had just lost their ship, their home, and they were still attacking. It was insane. It was impossible. It was exactly what you'd expect from people who evolved on a planet where giving up meant dying. By the end of 48 hours, Thulvar's fleet was reduced to burning wreckage. Only 8 ships remained intact and all were too damaged to fight. His crew dead or captured, his pride destroyed, his confidence shattered. The humans offered surrender terms. Thulvar, trained in a culture that saw surrender as the ultimate shame, almost refused. But then he thought about his crew, the ones still alive. He could give them death through pride, or he could give them a chance at life. He chose life. It felt like betrayal of everything he believed in. But watching those 6 human ships destroy 60 Krathax warships had taught him something important. Some enemies were too dangerous to fight with honor. Some enemies understood survival better than anyone. On the surface of Lumina 7, the Villani watched the sky. They saw the lights of dying ships. They saw escape pods falling like rain. They didn't know if they should feel saved or terrified. These humans had come in response to their cry for help. But the violence they brought was beyond anything the peaceful Villani could comprehend. Captain Yuna received a message as her freighter approached Lumina 7. It was from Admiral Gunwu. "The area is secure. Medical ships are standing by for rescue operations. Your grandfather would be proud." Yuna stared at the message for a long time. Then she set course for the planet. There would be wounded on both sides. People who needed medical supplies. That was her job. That was what she could do. The galaxy had just learned a lesson it would never forget. Deathworlders didn't fight like civilized species. They fought to win. Admiral Gunwu was reviewing fleet deployment schedules when the priority alert flashed across his terminal. He sat in the command center of Olympus 9, a massive military station that orbited Earth like a steel moon. The station served as the headquarters for all human military operations in this sector of space. He opened the message and listened. The Villani distress call played first with its heartbreaking sounds of fear and death. Then came the brief addition from Captain Yuna. Gunwu played it 3 times, his expression growing harder with each repetition. He knew the Galactic Coalition's official channels had received similar messages from Lumina 7. He also knew they would do nothing. The Villani had refused to join the Coalition's military treaties decades ago, believing their commitment to peace and scholarship would protect them. The Coalition didn't defend non-members. It was politics, cold and simple, but humans didn't operate that way. Not anymore. Not after learning what the galaxy could be like. Gunwu pressed the emergency Jiao 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 button on his desk. Within 30 minutes, the senior command staff had assembled in the war room. General Nari arrived first, still wearing her training uniform. She led the Terra Marines, the most feared ground combat force in human space. Commander Jiho came next, moving silently like a shadow. He ran the reconnaissance division, the eyes and ears that most enemies never saw coming. Finally, Dr. Hana entered, carrying a data pad filled with intelligence reports. Gunwoo didn't waste time with pleasantries. He played the distress call for everyone to hear. The room fell silent except for the sounds of dying children and burning cities. When it ended, General Nari's hands were clenched into fists. "How long ago did this happen?" she asked. "The message is 4 hours old," Gunwoo replied. "By now the Krathaks have probably finished their initial assault. They'll be beginning the harvest phase. Taking prisoners for slave labor, stripping resources." Dr. Hana pulled up holographic displays in the center of the table. Images appeared showing the Krathaks Empire's expansion over the past 5 years. 12 civilizations destroyed or enslaved. Hundreds of worlds conquered, a military force that numbered in the thousands of ships. "The Krathaks have been doing this for years," Dr. Hana said. Her voice was steady, but everyone in the room knew her personal history. She had survived a Krathaks raid on a human research colony 10 years ago. She watched friends die while coalition forces debated whether to respond. By the time help arrived, it was too late for everyone except her. "They're careful to avoid provoking major powers. They only attack peaceful species who can't fight back." Commander Jiho brought up additional data. "My reconnaissance teams have been monitoring Krathaks movements for months. They have a fleet of 60 warships currently surrounding Lumina 7. Standard occupation force. They're not expecting any resistance." "Because there won't be any," General Nari said bitterly. "The coalition won't act. The Villani have no military. No one in the galaxy has the spine to stand up to the Krathaks." Gunwoo leaned forward. "Then we will." The room went quiet. Everyone understood what he was suggesting. This wasn't about defending human territory. This wasn't about protecting trade routes or strategic resources. This was about something more fundamental. "We have no treaty with the Villani," Commander Jiho pointed out. "No legal basis for military action. The coalition will condemn us. They'll call it aggression." "Let them," Gunwoo said. "I'm tired of watching peaceful species get slaughtered because the galaxy has forgotten what justice looks like." Dr. Hana nodded slowly. "The Krathaks think they're untouchable because they have numbers and because no one has ever truly challenged them. They've never faced humans in direct combat. They know we come from Deathworlds. They know we have strong military forces, but they don't really understand what that means." "Then it's time they learned," General Nari said. A cold smile crossed her face. "They're about to discover what Deathworlders really are." Gunwoo stood and walked to the holographic display. He rotated the image, studying Lumina 7's position. "This isn't a rescue mission. Rescue implies we're saving who we can and leaving. This is different. This is a message. A message to the Krathaks Empire and to every other predator species in the galaxy." He turned to face his command staff. "Operation Retribution is now active. I want 6 fleets ready to launch within 12 hours. Fast response vessels only. We're not going to lay siege. We're going to hit them so hard they won't know what happened." 6 fleets against 60 Krathaks warships? Commander Jiho asked. He wasn't questioning the order, just confirming the numbers. 6 fleets is enough, Gunwoo said. "We're not trying to match their numbers. We're trying to break their will." General Nari pulled up deployment orders on her terminal. "I'll have 3 battalions of Terra Marines ready for boarding operations. If any Krathak ships surrender, we'll take them. If they fight, we'll show them why humans don't lose ground combat." Commander Jiho was already working on his own plans. "My stealth teams can infiltrate their command structure, hack their communications, make them fight blind and confused." Dr. Hana looked at the casualty projections. "The Krathaks will fight to the death. Their culture doesn't accept surrender. We need to be prepared for high enemy casualties. Then we'll give them every chance to surrender," Gunwoo said firmly. "But if they choose death, we'll accommodate them. This needs to be decisive. The galaxy needs to see what happens when someone challenges humanity's sense of justice." The orders went out within the hour. 6 fleets began mobilizing from Earth, Mars, Titan, and the outer colonies. Each fleet consisted of warships designed with one purpose in mind: winning battles against superior numbers. Human ships weren't the biggest or the most heavily armed in the galaxy, but they were fast, adaptable, and crewed by people who grew up on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. The crews were all volunteers. Word had spread quickly about the Villani situation, and thousands of personnel had requested assignment to the operation. Many had families who remembered the Krathax raids on early human settlements. They understood that this wasn't just about one planet. This was about drawing a line and saying, no more. Captain Yuna, still traveling through neutral space, received a terse reply to her message. It came from Admiral Gunwu himself, though she didn't know that at the time. The message was simple and direct. Stay clear of Lumina 7 for 48 hours. After that, there won't be any Krathax left to worry about. Yuna showed the message to her crew. Hyunwoo and Taiyang read it twice, their faces showing a mixture of relief and fear. 48 hours, Taiyang whispered. They're going to clear out 60 warships in 2 days? Apparently, Yuna said. She thought about her grandfather again, about all his stories of human military operations. He always said the same thing. Humans didn't fight fair. They fought to win, using every advantage their harsh home world had given them. In the war room on Olympus 9, Admiral Gunwu watched the fleet departure schedules update in real time. Ships were launching ahead of schedule, their crews eager to begin the operation. He felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. This decision would change everything. It would announce to the galaxy that humanity would no longer stand by while innocent people died. But it was the right decision. He knew it in his bones, the same way his ancestors knew they had to fight when predators threatened their tribes. The same way every generation of humans learned that sometimes survival meant standing up to bullies. The Krathax Empire was about to receive an education in Deathworld tactics, and the tuition would be paid in blood and steel. The distress signal cut through the void of space like a knife through silk. Captain Yuna was reviewing cargo manifests in her quarters when the alert chimed on her console. She had been hauling medical supplies for 3 weeks straight, and her body ached for rest. The independent freighter Silent Dawn wasn't built for comfort, but it paid the bills and kept her crew employed. She pressed the button to play the message. What came through the speakers made her blood run cold. The sound of children crying filled her cabin. Behind their wails, she heard the distinctive crack of energy weapons. An elderly voice spoke in broken Galactic Common, the universal language most species used for communication. The voice trembled with fear and desperation. This is Lumina 7. We are under attack. The Krathax Empire has invaded our world. We have no weapons. We have no military. We are scholars and artists and teachers. Please, someone, anyone. Our children are dying. Our cities are burning. We sent messages to the Galactic Coalition, but they have not responded. We have no defenses. We need help. Please. The message repeated twice more before cutting off into static. Yuna sat frozen in her chair, her hands gripping the armrests. She had heard of the Krathax Empire. Everyone had. They were conquerors who swept through peaceful systems, enslaving populations and stripping worlds of resources. The galaxy feared them, but no one seemed willing to stop them. She called her first officer to the bridge. Hyunwoo arrived within minutes, his uniform slightly wrinkled from sleep. He was a good man, loyal and practical, but he always chose the safe path. When she played him the message, his face went pale. We need to forward this to coalition forces, Hyunwoo said immediately. This isn't our fight, Captain. We're cargo runners, not soldiers. Taeyang, their engineer, had followed Hyunwoo to the bridge. She was young, barely 25, with grease stains permanently embedded under her fingernails. Hyunwoo is right. What can we do against a military empire? We have one ship with no weapons. We'd be flying to our deaths. Yuna understood their fear. It was the logical response, the smart response, the safe response. But something in that message had touched a nerve deep inside her. Those children crying, those elders pleading, the sound of hope dying in real time. She remembered something her grandfather had told her when she was young. He had been a history teacher on Earth, obsessed with the old days before humanity reached the stars. He used to say that the worst evil in the universe wasn't the people who did terrible things. It was the people who saw terrible things happening and did nothing. We're not going to fight them ourselves, Yuna said slowly. But we're not going to forward this to the coalition either. They'll debate it for weeks, form committees, draft proposals. By the time they decide to act, everyone on that planet will be dead or enslaved. Then what do you suggest? Hyunwoo asked. Yuna pulled up her navigation console and started entering coordinates. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic interface. I'm sending it somewhere else. Somewhere the message will actually matter. She accessed an old frequency, one that most modern ships didn't even monitor anymore. It was a relic from the early days of human expansion, when the colony worlds were still establishing communication networks. Most spacers had abandoned it decades ago in favor of more efficient systems. But Yuna knew it was still active. She knew because her grandfather had made her memorize it, along with a dozen other pieces of seemingly useless information about Earth and its territories. At the time, she thought he was just being sentimental. Now she understood he was being prepared. She forwarded the Villani distress signal to that frequency, along with the coordinates for Lumina 7. Then she added her own message. It was brief, only 2 sentences, but she chose each word carefully. Innocent people are dying. Coordinates attached. They wanted help. I'm giving them something better. She sent the transmission and sat back in her chair. Hyunwoo and Taeyang stared at her like she had lost her mind. What did you just do? Taeyang asked. Where did you send that message? Home, Yuna replied. I sent it to Earth. Hyunwoo's eyes went wide. You contacted the human defense fleet? Captain, do you understand what you've just done? Humans don't do rescue missions. They don't do peacekeeping. Every species in the galaxy knows what humans are. They're Deathworlders. They come from a planet so hostile that it produces the most dangerous soldiers in known space. Exactly, Yuna said calmly. The Villani asked for help. The Coalition won't give it to them. But Earth will respond. Maybe not the way anyone expects, but they'll respond. Taeyang shook her head in disbelief. The stories about human military operations. Captain, they don't save people. They destroy threats, completely, utterly. There's a reason other species are terrified of them. Yuna thought about her grandfather again. He had lived through the early contact years when humanity first encountered alien civilizations. He told her stories about how other species reacted to learning where humans came from. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world, one of the most hostile planets known to support intelligent life. Most species evolved on worlds with gentle gravity, stable climates, and abundant resources. Earth was different. It had crushing gravity that built dense bones and powerful muscles. It had predators that forced humans to develop persistence hunting and pack tactics. It had diseases that trained human immune systems to fight like armies. It had weather so violent that hurricanes, tornadoes, and earthquakes were just normal events. The galaxy looked at Earth and wondered how anything survived there, much less reached the stars. When humans began expanding into space, other species watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. Here was a species that treated radiation exposure as an inconvenience, that laughed at gravity wells other races found crushing, that could eat foods containing toxins that would kill most galactic citizens. They're dangerous, Yuna agreed. But they're dangerous to the right people. The Krathaks hurt the weak and helpless. Humans protect them. At least, that's what my grandfather always believed. Hyunwoo sighed deeply. I hope you're right, Captain. Because if you're wrong, we might have just made things much worse. Yuna stared out the viewport at the stars streaming past. Somewhere out there, on Lumina 7, people were dying. Somewhere else, on Earth, or one of its colony worlds, her message was being received. Soon, very soon, the Krathaks Empire would learn something important. They would learn what happened when Deathworlders got angry. The Silent Dawn continued on its route, carrying medical supplies to a station 3 systems away. Yuna ordered her crew to stay clear of Lumina 7 for the next few days. She didn't know exactly what would happen, but she knew enough about human military doctrine to understand one thing. When Earth responded to a threat, they didn't send negotiators. They sent a message written in fire and steel, and that message was always the same. Never again.